In order to better understand the story of the ghettos, we have chosen to focus on the Lodz ghetto.
The Lodz ghetto was one of the first to be established in April of 1940. It was the second largest ghetto to be established, and it was completely sealed off from the outside world. The area of the ghetto was about 1.5 square miles. 170,000 Jews were incarcerated in it, which meant that there was between 8 and 10 people per room. The houses were so deteriorated that many of them were not connected to sewage, to gas, or to water.
David Shirakoviak was born in Lodz in 1924. He began to keep a diary from the summer of 1939, the outbreak of the war, until shortly before he died in the summer of 1943 out of hunger and exhaustion.
Wednesday, October 4th, 1939. Some student from the German school ran up to me with a big stick in his hand and shouted, "Come work! You can't go to school." I did not resist because I knew that no papers could help me here. He took me to a square where over a dozen Jews were already at work picking up leaves.
Through no fault of his own, David, who until recently lived a normal life, is at once thrown into a situation where he is completely humiliated. Yet he rises above this difficult moment and looks into the deeper meaning of human behavior and writes, "It's our oppressors that should be ashamed, not us."
Friday, May 2nd, 1941. The portion of bread I receive won't feed me for more than 2 or 3 days. After that, my stomach's empty, and all I can think of is the next loaf of bread.
The overcrowding, hunger, and loss had become an inseparable part of life in the ghetto, turning every day into a struggle for one's physical and spiritual existence.
Sunday, May 11th, 1941. I feel awful and look worse and worse. I hear that it's hard to recognize me.
More than 43,000 Jews, 21% of the ghetto inhabitants, died due to the harsh conditions.
Friday, May 16th, 1941. I have been examined by a doctor at school. She was terrified at how thin I am. The checkup has left me frightened and worried.
David reveals the constant fragmenting of normalcy, but he also reveals the choices he made and the lifelines he was holding on to. From the beginning of the German occupation, he mentions school.
Sunday, April 27th, 1941. The first day of school. The trip to Merashin is quite long, but the worst thing about it is the awful mud from the incessant rain. My shoes are in terrible shape. They are beginning to go, but any repair is out of the question.
Yet he's unwilling to give up going to school. And he writes,
Sunday, April 27th, 1941. I suppose I'll soon have to rush to school barefoot.
Leaving the isolated ghetto was impossible. In those moments when students were learning science, poetry, history, they were, to some extent, uplifted from the morbid existence of the ghetto.
I went to school for a short while, and then they just closed all the schools and everybody had to go to work. So they sent me to a place that was making carpets, which was a tapir resort. It consisted, we had like a frame with some kind of a cotton going through, and we used to get pieces of material and make long pieces of material, and then we used to weave it in and make designs. They really came out quite nice.
The Germans established Jewish councils in every ghetto, and these generally came to be known as the Judenrat. The members of the Judenrat were faced with many dilemmas in their decision-making process. On the one hand, they were frequently threatened with death if they did not comply with German orders. On the other hand, they tried to do what they could for the ghetto population. The head of the Judenrat in Ghetto Lodz was Chaim Rumkowski, and he thought that the best way for the ghetto residents to get through the war was to work. And eventually, over 100 factories were set up in the ghetto, providing essential goods for the Germans. All the Jews in the ghetto were forced to work by the Germans, including all children over the age of 10. Beginning in the winter of 1942, the Germans deported Jews from the ghettos to extermination camps.
Saturday, September 5th, 1942. My mother has been caught, and I doubt very much that anything will save her.
In September of 1942, the Germans rounded up the Jews in a horrific, bloody operation known as the Sperre. They moved from house to house, forcibly removing the elderly, the sick, and children under the age of 10. More than 15,000 Jews were deported to the Chamenor extermination camp. Not a single family was left untouched.
Saturday, September 5th, 1942. My poor mother, who always feared everything, yet invariably continued to believe in God, spoke to us about her fate. She kind of admitted that I was right when I told her that she had given up her life by lending and giving away provisions, but she admitted it with such a bitter smile that I could see she didn't regret her conduct at all, and, although she loved her life so greatly, for her there are values even more important than life. She kissed each one of us goodbye, took a bag with her bread and a few potatoes that I forced on her, and left quickly to her horrible fate. I couldn't muster the willpower to look through the window after her or to cry. I thought my heart was breaking. It didn't break, though, and it let me eat, think, speak, and go to sleep.
Well, David's diary reveals the shards of his fractured life. Moments of spirituality emerge from his descriptions. Even the fact that he continues writing a diary in a world of chaos and death reveals his choice and determination to maintain his humanity. One would expect that in the face of constant and rapid deterioration and deprivation, people would become indifferent to one another. But even the very last sentences in David's diary reveal that caring, friendship, and humanity still existed in the ghetto.
Thursday, April 15th, 1943. Mrs. Deutsch came to see me today. I think she is the most devoted friend I have in the ghetto, or anywhere else for that matter.
3 months later, David died. He was not even 18 years old.